Hello again, my friends. We've made our way back to Lordran. I intend to do a much longer video this time, as I am rather happy with how the first video turned out. And hopefully I can provide you folks with something you can actually leave on, whether you are using it to sleep or simply relax, something that will fill a lot of time rather than simply a short 15 minutes. We will probably use this time to do a bit of a ramble, but first, I would love to visit this bonfire and perhaps begin leveling up my statistics. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with this build yet, but you can never really make any mistakes with vitality, and I do know we'll be wanting faith at some point. Then again, perhaps we will wait on assigning our levels, because there is something we can see over here. The splashing noises are actually quite pleasant, in my opinion, though that water could be slightly less pixelated. This game certainly has aged well, but it has aged. These skeletons were the absolute bane of my existence on my first playthrough, and I am terribly sorry for those frames we just lost that was in the game. I might have to consider uninstalling my high-res texture mod for this playthrough, as it does seem to create a few of those lags when loading new textures into the game's memory. But while we are engaging these skeletons, and perhaps endangering our lives, I thought I might... Oof. Well, first I'll drink a flask before anything else. Okay, perhaps I am not as skilled at this game as I had hoped, as those skeletons have seemed to give me about as much trouble as they did originally. That said, we can make our way back and simply grab our bloodstain and obtain all of the souls we lost. The real reason we are heading over here is to pick up this winged spear. Though, unfortunately, we seem to have gotten a little bit trapped. Hopefully those "you are dead" noises are not too loud. I didn't really have the chance to test them perfectly when I was doing my initial tests on this playthrough, but if they are too loud, we can always adjust them later on subsequent episodes. Yes, do you see the lag as those textures load in? Yes, we will certainly be considering uninstalling that texture mod before the next episode. But now that we have the winged spear, we can simply rest to get all of these skeletons off of our tail. Unless, of course, we cannot rest. Okay, we can rest. So, the real reason I wanted to do that is so I could see I need 13 strength and 15 dexterity if I want to wield this weapon. I'm not sure whether I want to wield this weapon, but it does seem like a reasonable goal. In order to do that, however, our dexterity is in need of quite a few points, so we can put 3 in for now. Before we leave, perhaps we will talk to this crestfallen warrior.
Well, what do we have here? You must be a new arrival. Let me guess. Fate of the undead, right? Well, you're not the first. But there's no salvation here. You'd have done better to rot in the undead asylum. But too late now. Well, since you're here, let me help you out. There are actually 2 bells of awakening. One's up above in the undead church. The other is far, far below, in the ruins at the base of Blight Town. Ring them both, and something happened. Brilliant, right? Not much to go on, but I have a feeling that won't stop you. So, off you go. It is why you came, isn't it? To this accursed land of the undead? Ah, your face. You're practically hollow. But who knows? Going hollow could solve quite a bit. What? Restoring your humanity? Well, there are a few ways to go about it. Collect it bit by bit from corpses. Or you can butter up a cleric and get yourself summoned. And the quickest way, although I'd never do it, is to kill a healthy undead and pillage its humanity. Coveting thy neighbor is only human, after all.
So he has given us a hint that we may invade other people's worlds and engage them in combat for humanity, but I do not believe we will be doing that during this playthrough, nor do I believe that it is the fastest way to gain humanity in any sense. But we shall venture onwards. So while I am making my way to the undead, more lag, unfortunately. We will definitely be ridding ourselves of that mod. Apologies again. But while we are making our way up to the Undead Burg, I thought it might be prudent for me to discuss some of my motivation in this video series. Clearly, I have started a new channel. I have no previous experience in the field of ASMR, and certainly little experience in the field of YouTube videos in general, but I have been an avid member of the ASMR viewing community for what must be years now. My first encounter with ASMR was a video by the quite popular ASMR artist Gentle Whispering. I believe her name is also Maria. But since discovering her, I have found my own personal taste in ASMR videos, including such prolific people as the great Heather Feather, but also perhaps more esoteric, such as Ephemeral Rift, Phoenician Sailor, and ASMR Chess, it is this last member that recommended to me another upstart channel under the name of ASM Regular, who is a game developer, a 3D modeler, and he creates 3D models on screen for many of his videos. And something he said in his video resonated with me, which is that he too did not have any appreciable following or traditional ASMR skills, but he felt that he had taken so much from the community that it was his duty to give back, and that inspired me to do the same. I am not skilled at many things, but I do have a passion for some things. One of those things is these wonderful games gifted to us by From Software. And I thought that perhaps, in addition to all of the many streams I've already done of my initial playthroughs of these games, I might create a more relaxing form of entertainment. I think it is slightly ironic that that dragon would appear to shock us as I say the word relaxing, but such is life. When you are playing a violent game in hopes of relaxing. I also am very unfamiliar with this mace's animations and would much prefer to be using the spear, so as soon as I can do that I will be. But back to my history and my intent. I have been streaming with basic gear, just a normal USB headset, and open broadcaster software for several years now, and I always thought about doing perhaps higher quality recording, but I never had the equipment up until now. I now have this wonderful condenser microphone. Hopefully I can get another one at some point, and we can have some maybe ear-to-ear binaural action on some of these videos, but until then, I'm afraid you will have to make do with mono on my voice, though the game is of course in lovely stereo. But while we take care of these skeletons, perhaps I will talk a bit about myself. My name is Eliana. I go by fairly much in the online world, hence the channel name Fae SMR. I am quite fond of the Fae and Fae folk. I resonate with them greatly, but that is neither here nor there. I identify as female and I'm actually in the process of transitioning at the moment, but unfortunately testosterone has worked a number on my body and my voice, so hence the lower tones that you may be finding yourself listening to at the moment. The advantage, of course, is many people find this pitch of voice soothing,
Well,
and
you seem to
while
have
I
your wits
still
about you.
have it,
Then you are. I trade for soul.
we perhaps will get some benefit out of it with these videos. I will be buying myself an orange guidance soapstone in case I feel the need to read any messages, and a repair powder because not having a repair powder is just never a good idea. In fact, I would also really love a residence key,
Thank you kindly.
but I do not seem to have the souls, so I'm going to see if I happen to have perhaps some souls of a lost undead to make up the difference. In fact, it looks like it's already in this slot.
Oh, I hope you.
So we will get our residence key.
Oh, thank you very much.
I apologize for talking over and mashing through this merchant's dialogue, but I find his basic dialogue is not that interesting. Perhaps we will listen to what he has to say when we talk to him, however.
Things are getting treacherous in these parts. A horrible goat demon has moved in below. And up above, there's that humongous drake and a bull demon too. If you stick around this place, it might end up being your grave. What a waste of time. Go and fall off a cliff.
Oh, I assure you, I have fallen off many a cliff in my time playing this game. Hopefully we will be doing much less of that, as I like to think I am at least vaguely experienced in the ways of Dark Souls at this time. Though I have only completed one playthrough. I am slightly more of a fan of this axe, though the wind-up leaves something to be desired. I would much prefer my spear, but we do not currently have the souls to wield it, or rather, the levels. I do not actually remember if there is something of value over here, so we are going to look. I do not remember anything, but that doesn't mean that nothing is here. In fact, it looks like there is something of value. Now, if the messages were more abundant, this is where a slightly rude message might appear. Though, upon further consideration, I remember that Dark Souls 1's message system does not allow the creation of the rude message that I was thinking of, simply due to its inability to use more than one sentence fragment. While we are on this journey, I believe we will be heading up here to fight the Taurus demon. I apologize if you have never played this game before and are looking to go in with more of a blind eye, but as an experienced player, I will be discussing perhaps some of my plans, some of my experiences, and such things. I do value being able to go into this game fresh, but unfortunately, I have already experienced this game so much that it would be hard for me to even pretend to experience it fresh, and I feel that would be dishonest to the viewers. So, while it is certainly possible to kill this Taurus demon without making sure I have 10 flasks, that's a funny word. It contains perhaps one of the most popular sounds in the community. Flasks. 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 I would like to have 10 flasks because more healing is always safe, if not useful. And who knows what mistakes I will make on our journey. But it seems for now we will simply make our way up here. As I mentioned before, I do not really have much of a plan when it comes to my build or my gear that I'm searching for. This is more of an experimental playthrough since I am new to the field of miracles. Speaking of which, I mustn't forget that I can use those to heal myself, as I may, in fact, completely let it slip my mind. I am mostly used to spellcasting of the offensive sort in these games, though miracles certainly do have their share of that as well. Hopefully we get to try some out. This man right here, this hollow, was sneakier than I remembered, and I swear I thought there was something else over here, but it seems I was mistaken. Or perhaps, yes, I must have been mistaken. It also seems that I just broke that barrel through the wall, which is curious, but not entirely unexpected. I have, in fact, played this game before and understand many of its quirks. We will be taking a measured and careful approach to combat, especially since we are unfamiliar with the weapon we are using. These fire throwers can certainly be a pain, and perhaps we will lure some of them down here. Perhaps we will cast heal upon ourselves so that we do not waste any of our precious flasks. I apologize if that sound or that word doesn't please you, but I find that particular cadence of consonants to be quite comforting. And this is why we purchased the residence key, because I was aware that there is quite a lovely gift in this chest for us. Some gold pine resin. It will certainly be useful to us if we ever come into contact with a dragon. Unfortunately, I seem to have cornered myself quite severely. So we will simply run up here, heal ourselves, avoid getting backstabbed, and re-engage when we feel we are ready. Oof, that was quite painful. But thankfully we have 3 more casts of this heal spell before we even have to dip into our flasks. Ooh, we have found ourselves a spear, my friends. It appears we can wield it as well. A spear is quite a bit more up my alley. In fact, the Dragon Slayer spear from the... well, perhaps we won't spoil that much, but from a quite enjoyable and recognizable boss will be something I am interested to try out on this character. Unfortunately, I meant to use my heal spell there. I already forgot. We also had a bit of a jump there. I apologize again. I will absolutely be uninstalling those textures. You probably wouldn't notice the difference anyway with the YouTube encoding. And if you are like me, perhaps you watch these videos on a smaller screen or with your eyes closed entirely. I certainly am not one to keep my eyes open while trying to relax to a video. I feel that might defeat the purpose. Unfortunately, with this spear, I feel like we may have some issues killing this crystal lizard. Thankfully, with these stairs, we seem to be doing better. And it is also much easier to lock those lizards in a stun recovery animation than it is in Dark Souls 2, which I have been playing a fair amount of recently. Since I am aware that this boss coming up is weak to fire, I will be equipping these black fire bombs to help me deal a small amount of damage from afar. I also will be finding this ladder and engaging these hollows so that they do not spend their time shooting at me during the boss fight, as that would be quite annoying to say the least. In fact, I may even be able to attack with my shield up with the spear, which is something I did not quite expect. I am curious, in fact, as to how much damage this spear is doing in comparison to the axe. It actually seems quite a bit weaker. Quite a bit weaker, indeed. Yes, indeed. We do 104 damage, whereas this spear only brings us 86 damage. Perhaps it will be more useful to have the winged spear in the future, but until then, we can simply keep the battle axe equipped. In fact, we can do even more damage utilizing the two-handing mechanic in this game, since we will not really be getting much use out of our shield during this fight anyway. So here is the first true boss of the game, the Taurus Demon, with a small bit of frame lag, just to usher him in properly. We may be finding ourselves in a bit of trouble, but I believe we are dead. I was going to say I believe that we can make it through, but it appears that I was at least a bit overconfident. But that is okay, because in Dark Souls, death is simply a part of life. And so we make our way back to the boss room, slowly and carefully, not giving in to the desire to rush back and lose our lives in the process. As we climb our way up these stairs, perhaps we may contemplate the beauty of Lordran. Even in this desolate, hollow-filled world, we see these beautiful vistas, stunning castles. Perhaps they are a little blurry. Perhaps their polygon count is not the highest. But I believe we have a chance to die here. Unfortunately. I am sorry. While this may be a video created primarily for relaxation, Dark Souls is by its nature a stressful game, and perhaps some of my tangents and rambles will be interrupted as I struggle to survive. That said, I will be certain to keep such moments of panic quiet and perhaps not all that panicky. Now that we have dispatched the hollow snipers, we may return and attempt our assault upon the Taurus demon one more time. Our first objective should be to recover our humanity and souls, which in fact we were able to accomplish with reasonable ease. In fact, while this creature may deal great damage with each swing, I am actually much more concerned with his ability to knock us directly off of the ramparts. And so, while we engage him, we will be certain to avoid such a fate. That said, we may have to back ourselves off so that we may engage in some healing, as I have already made several mistakes. And while we were back here, perhaps we will start using our fire bombs. Oof. Unfortunately, I seem to have the timing on that roll quite off. I am actually curious as to whether I am getting the full light roll in this game. Perhaps I am not, or perhaps I am simply out of practice. I would rate them both as somewhat likely, unfortunately. Perhaps we will begin attempting to use our shield to weaken the beast's blows. It is quite dangerous to be pulling a move like that, but I thought I might try it out nonetheless. I am not sure whether dexterity increases casting speed in this game. If it does, perhaps dexterity is a stat we will want to invest quite a bit in for safety on such heals. That was what I was talking about. He nearly knocked us clean off of the ramparts. I realize that I have been gendering this Taurus demon. Who knows whether Taurus demon is male or female? Perhaps the Taurus demon has no concept of gender. I cannot be certain. But we have achieved victory on the first true boss. Kindly, it has given us a homeward bone if we wished to head back to the nearest bonfire, but I believe we are a tad braver than that, and perhaps there is a good friend waiting for us up ahead. I believe there is an item hidden behind some crates here, yes. Now we may continue our adventure through the Undead Burg to meet a good friend of ours. Someone that may help us along our journey. Let us listen to what he has to say.
Ah, hello. You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight. Now that I am undead, I have come to this great land, the birthplace of Lord Gwyn, to seek my very own son. You find that strange? Well, you should. No need to hide your reaction. I get that look all the time. Oh, aha. So I didn't scare you. I have a proposition, if you have a moment. The way I see it, our fates appear to be intertwined. In a land brimming with hollows, could that really be mere chance? So what do you say? Why not help one another on this lonely journey?
We are always willing to engage in jolly cooperation with our dear friend Solaire.
This pleases me greatly. Well then, take this. We are amidst strange beings in a strange land. The flow of time itself is convoluted, with heroes centuries old phasing in and out. The very fabric wavers, and relations shift and obscure. There's no telling how much longer your world and mine will remain in contact. But use this to summon one another as spirits, cross the gaps between the worlds, and engage in jolly cooperation. Of course, we are not the only ones engaged in this, but I am a warrior of the sun. Spot my summon signature easily by its brilliant aura. If you miss it, you must be blind.
Well, thank you, Solaire. Now that we may engage in jolly cooperation, though I do not expect us to be partaking in much of that on screen, we can continue our way down this bridge. But while we may enjoy the sight of that bridge, we must be careful, for a dragon guards it fiercely. So we shall make the journey across this bridge in hopes that we may not be set aflame. And in fact, it seems we have made it. I unfortunately got a little lost there. I may know this game quite well, but apparently not well enough. But this shall allow us to reach a bonfire we have already lit and kindled, quite conveniently for us. I may have to check if that bonfire noise is too loud. It seems louder than anything else in the game thus far. Hopefully, it is not too bad. I believe we are in need of 15 dexterity in order to wield our winged spear. It may have also been 13 strength. I will have to double check. Yes, 13 strength indeed. Thankfully, we can simply equip it first and spend the points to level up afterwards. I also want to get us a small bit of endurance to make sure that we have an okay equip load, and perhaps a point in vitality, as a point in vitality is never wasted. Now that we have a more comfortable loadout, I may venture up this ladder and off to our goal for this evening, which is the Undead Parish. Reaching the Undead Parish is certainly an exciting moment, and I do believe we will be doing it tonight. We may have some trouble with this hollow, however, as his precarious position on this precipice is quite perplexing, and I cannot unfortunately think of a word that means and sounds as I wish it to in this scenario, but difficult is perhaps the feeling I meant to get across. Unfortunately, it seems I have allowed myself to get poisoned, and I do not seem to have any moss to cure myself, so we will engage in perhaps some relaxation while we wait out this poison seeping away at us with its gentle sound. As our health bar slowly decreases, we can hear the Hellkite dragon growling overhead. But we mustn't fear, for it can neither see nor reach us in this underground sewer. It appears that we will be sitting here for quite some time as we wait this poison out. We are down to only 2 heal spells, and I quite expect that I shall be using at least 1 more on this poison. But luckily we are in possession of 10 Estus flasks to heal us quickly if danger should arise. And in Lordran, danger arises quite often. Now that we have waited out and used our miracles to counteract the poison, we may continue on our way towards the Undead Parish as is displayed so helpfully on screen. I am moderately terrified of that pig creature. The last time I fought it, I was in possession of sorceries which allowed me to do considerable damage without placing myself at much risk. This time, I do not have that luxury, and I also seem to be kicking instead of stabbing because I am less skilled than I would like. These shielded enemies can be quite a hassle and have already reduced me to quite a low amount of health. Thankfully, fighting one of them is a simple matter of circling around and impaling it in the rear. Unfortunately, we are now brought face to face with this poor creature. First, I may attempt this firebomb, and as luck would have it, completely miss my intended target. In fact, I believe that this armored target would be much better served. I would be much better served, rather, by a mace than a spear in combat, as the crushing blows of the mace do not get as affected by the armor. Unfortunately, this character is quite weak, and any weapon will be somewhat of a struggle. In fact, we do not even have to concern ourselves with the boar, as we have simply died to hollows with crossbows. But failure is simply proof that we are making an effort, and so we will continue making an effort and retrieve our souls and humanity before progressing further. Perhaps we will not waste time getting poisoned this time around. In fact, I would much enjoy it if that were the case. Thankfully, these rats are quite easily dispatched with a shield, but one must remember to guard their attacks instead of swinging wildly. That is perhaps one of the first lessons Dark Souls attempts to teach you, which is that simply attacking will get you nowhere, while attacking is of course necessary to conquer your opponents. You must exploit their openings and guard your own. In fact, I would even go so far as to argue that this entire first section of the game is simply a lesson in guarding and exploiting the opening once you have guarded. While it is certainly possible to use other techniques, these two simple techniques will quite suffice for these early stages of the game. And as most classes begin with a shield, and the default class of knight goes well with this behavior, I would say that it is probably a intentional design. That discussion may have to wait a short time, as we are in danger of being conquered by this boar. In fact, I may find myself retreating into this small confines. And unfortunately, the 8 damage I am doing against that boar, I do not find worth my time. So, instead, we will re-equip our spear and press onward into what was clearly an ambush, but I did not prepare myself adequately for. It is certainly difficult to keep both a steady voice for your listening pleasure and a steady mind for progressing quickly in this game. Hopefully, we manage to make it through this game without too many embarrassing moments, but knowing my experience with Dark Souls, I am sure I will make a fool of myself occasionally, if not frequently. I should have shielded that rather than attacking so frivolously, but I wanted to get the jump on him. It was a foolhardy idea. It can be difficult to walk across ledges such as that, but we have found a way across, so that is good. Now, we may continue our way into the Undead Parish proper. We may find ourselves in a position to backstab this knight here, therefore drastically cutting down upon the amount of work to defeat him. That said, perhaps I should begin attempting to parry my opponents, as I am not doing much damage otherwise. We now are in possession of a stronger shield, but the disadvantage is it is much heavier. In fact, it is so heavy that we lose some of the benefits of our lighter role, so I think I will be refraining from using said shield, and will instead be using the lighter one. This is a bit of a standoff, but if I can simply get the game to behave, I can use a kick to open up my opponent's defenses and acquire a much needed Titanite shard. These Titanite shards will be instrumental in the upgrading of my weaponry. I am somewhat unsure as to how that hollow just guarded himself with his shield when I was behind him, but such are, of course, the quirks of Dark Souls. I am failing miserably at my parry attempts here. Thankfully, our spear gives us a bit of protection while we attack, and a bit of distance as well. That was unfortunate. I was hoping to break his shield stamina after the first hit, but it was not to be. Thankfully, we of course have our lovely heal miracle to keep us. Adjective. I cannot think of the word I am searching for. It is much easier to engage these Baldur Knights out in the open, as they are much more vulnerable to the all-important backstab. That basement key will, of course, be useful to us. It will allow us to reach the other boss of this area. Though I believe it is technically reachable without it. It is much easier to reach with it. We may have endangered ourselves with that particular stunt, but such is life. We are getting somewhat lucky with the Titanite shards, which is very, very nice. Before we go any further, I believe I will be putting these to use with our good friend Andre the blacksmith. I apologize for this latency. I promise you the first thing I will be doing before I even upload this episode is to rid myself of these high-resolution textures so that perhaps we may have less of an issue loading new areas. But before we may end this episode, we must accomplish our goal.
Well, you must be a new arrival. I'm Andre of Astora. If you require smithing, then speak to me.
We shall be asking him to reinforce our winged spear, since we have the Titanite shards to acquire 2 upgrades, and in fact, I may even purchase 1 more, as the weapon upgrades can be quite useful, and I do not feel like farming on stream for them. I also purchased another one while I was talking, because I am horrible at paying attention to what I am doing. But such is life. We have learned a hurrah gesture as well. though I do not foresee us using many gestures during this playthrough. Again, I am terribly sorry if the bonfire rest noise is overly loud. I will be checking that out and perhaps lowering it. In fact, it would be quite ironic if the act of resting was the least restful sound in this game. That said, we do not have much longer in this episode, my friends, unless we are stricken with a great deal of misfortune. For I do not intend to be fighting the gargoyles that exist at the top of this tower until our next episode. However, I do intend to be laying my hands on that firekeeper soul that this knight has been guarding. And in order to do that, we may find ourselves in combat with this knight. Our weapons deal unfortunately little damage to this gigantic knight, but we are nimble and he is slow, and with our speed and bravery we might overcome this Goliath as a simple David. The irony of finding another Titanite shard is not lost upon me. This Firekeeper soul will be useful to us. In fact, I'm curious as to its item description. Each Firekeeper is a corporeal manifestation of her bonfire, and a draw for the humanity which is offered to her. Her soul is gnawed by infinite humanity, and can boost the power of precious Estus flasks. It can be used to gain humanity and restore HP, at the cost of losing the Firekeeper soul to reinforce the Estus flasks. So, I do not believe we shall be using it to gain humanity. I believe we shall be taking it to this Firekeeper down here, who may do us the favor of boosting the flask. You may notice we have found our way back to the Firelink Shrine. Also, while we are here, we may as well engage with our first vendor that can sell us miracles.
Hello there. I believe we are not acquainted. I am Petrus of Thurland. Have you business with us? If not, I prefer to keep a distance, if possible. Hello there. I realize that I have requested that we retain our distance, but I also want you to know that it is not meant in ill will. Here, take this, as a token of peace. No, go ahead. It's for you. Oh my, you again. Oh, I know. How about this? I have to await my companions here anyway. So what if I were to teach you some miracles? Would that please you? Very well. Then first, a covenant with the gods. Now let me share my miracles. Only their ultimate effectiveness will be determined by your efforts and your faith.
I was not actually aware that we were already in the Way of White, but perhaps I should have paid closer attention. I am curious as to what miracles we may find ourselves able to possess. I do not believe we need a talisman or similar at the moment, as none of these miracles seem worth my time.
My companions are Milady and her young knights. She is young, but burdened by an undead mission. We are her defenses, to keep her from harm. An undead mission? Regrettably, I cannot share that with you. But you are my pupil. Perhaps if you show your faith.
I am not aware of what this does, but 1,200 souls is not a terribly steep price to find out.
Very well. I can surely tell you, of all people, undead clerics are given a mission to seek kindling. Kindling is the art of feeding bonfires with humanity. Through kindling, we shall one day be granted magnificent powers. Very well. Undead kindling through...
Well, it is silly that we needed to pay that much souls simply to unlock a bit of dialogue, which I was already aware of the contents of, but...
Come again. The effectiveness of the teachings depend upon your faith.
Such is life when entering Dark Souls without a plan. Sometimes you are pleasantly surprised. Sometimes, if not often, you are punished for your lack of knowledge. But is that not half of the fun? So, my friends, we began here at Firelink Shrine tonight, and I believe we will end here at Firelink Shrine. On our next episode, you may look forward to such things as a boss and switching between zones without massive frame lag. Regardless, I hope you are already asleep if you have been using this to sleep, and if you have simply been using this to enjoy or relax, I thank you, and I hope you look forward to the next video.